Hello, it's Eamon McAuley here, Belfast historian, boxing historian. I'm back here with another wee chit chat, and the subject today is very interesting. Don King, who managed most of the fighters in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and he's still managing fighters today at the age of 92, promoting fighters. Don King first got involved with boxing when someone introduced him to Muhammad Ali. This was in 1973, after King came out of jail for killing someone. King was involved in the death of two men. One was shot in self-defence and the other was kicked to death because he owed King $60. In 1974, Don King promoted the Foreman Ali fight in Kinshasa, Zaire. In 1978, Don King took control of the WBC after the title split when Leon Spinks refused to fight the number one contender, Ken Norton, and instead accepted a lucrative rematch with Muhammad Ali. Don King went with the WBC with Jose Suleiman, and Bob Arum went with the WBA. By the early mid-80s, Don King had all the top 10 rated heavyweights under contract. He stole money from them all. Tim Witherspoon and Mike Tyson took Don King to court, claiming that King stole millions off them. Tyson got 14 million back from King, and Witherspoon accepted just over $1 million. It was a victory of sorts for Don King, as he stole so much more of them. Larry Holmes had a crazy adversarial relationship with King, taking him to court on numerous occasions. Holmes talks about this in his wonderful book, Against the Odds. I remember seeing Don King in the flesh in Belfast, 1993, at the King's Hall, the Chris Eubank Ray Close rematch, and I just couldn't take my eyes off him. There he sat at ringside, and he brought a few heavyweight fighters over with him. I remember Tony Tucker and Franz Bofa doing exhibitions, and possibly Jerry Coetzee, if my memory keeps me right. Tim Witherspoon boxed Frank Bruno in London in 1986. Witherspoon, the champ, who had travelled over to his opponent's country, to his own city in London, to defend his title, ended up with £90,094. Bruno, the challenger, who wasn't contracted to King, earned £900,000. King had his wife, son and daughter on the Witherspoon payroll. Witherspoon was a very talented fighter, but he knew that he was getting screwed royally by King, and he was so out of it at the time that he didn't train when he lost his title in the first round to James Bone Crusher Smith. Losing meant King was out of my life, and that was all I wanted, said Tim Witherspoon. King owed Muhammad Ali, and Ali sued King, claiming King still owed him $1.1 million from his fight with Larry Holmes. King called on an old friend of Ali's, Jeremiah Chavez, and handed him a suitcase containing $50,000 in cash and a letter for Ali to sign to end Ali's lawsuit against King. Ali was in hospital at the time, still recovering from the beating he had took against Holmes when Chavez visited him. Ali accepted the $50,000 and signed the letter to end the lawsuit. Ali's lawyer cried when he heard that Ali had ended the lawsuit without telling him. Larry Holmes alleged that King had cheated him out of 10 million over the course of his career. Holmes did get $150,000 back from his $3.1 million purse against Mike Tyson. Initially it was $150,000 short. King made Holmes sign a legal agreement not to give any more negative information about King to reporters. Mike Tyson is quoted as saying that King did more bad to black boxers than any white promoters ever did. Terry Norris sued King and King settled out of court for $7.5 million. King cheated Melville Taylor out of $1 million and threatened to have Taylor killed. King also threatened to have Larry Holmes' legs broke. Heavyweight Chris Bird also sued King, among many others. Don King's most famous quote was, "Only in America," and he liked to say that he watched the first Ali Frazier fight in jail and promoted the second and third Ali Frazier fights. In May 2003, King was sued by Lennox Lewis for $385 million. King was pardoned for one of his killings in 1983. Yes, there was a lost generation of heavyweights there that failed to live up to their potential because of the money that King stole from them. As Larry Holmes says in his wonderful book Against the Odds, in public King had this knack of being amusing, of making people think of him as a P.T. Barnum kind of rascal, but there was a whole lot of evil bully in him. Don had been trying to sign Greg Page one time, and when Page's mother died, King cried his eyes out as he hugged Page. He didn't even know the mother. Phony. When Buster Douglas pulled off the biggest upset in boxing history, King and his buddy, WBC President Jose Sulaiman, tried to get the result overturned. Douglas knocked Tyson out in the 10th round, but in the 8th round, Tyson knocked Douglas down with an uppercut, and Douglas just about made the count. Later, the timekeeper said that the ref's count was slow, and Douglas had rose after 10 seconds. Sulaiman, no doubt in concert with King, suspended Douglas as champion. There was very little or no support for this decision though, and under worldwide pressure he relented and installed Douglas as champion. In finishing, the only good thing I can say about King is that he was very driven and he was a fantastic promoter, mostly at promoting himself. Him and Bob Arum promoted some of the greatest fights in history over 4 decades. As a person, I have nothing good to say about him. I can't think of anything good he said or done. In fact, I can't think of anything good anybody ever said about him. I sincerely hope that he can repent and make his peace with God. He is 92 now. In memory of a lost generation of heavyweights. Greg Page, rest in peace. Tony Tucker, James Quick Tellis, Tim Witherspoon, Mitch Green, Tony Tubbs, Trevor Berbick, rest in peace. Carl Williams, rest in peace. James Bonecrusher Smith, Jerry Coetzee, rest in peace. Michael Dokes, rest in peace. Mike Weaver, John Tate, rest in peace. And there was many, many more. And they were great fighters. They could have been all-time greats, but they were beat down by Don King. They hadn't a chance. But he must have been a genius, Don King, at what he done. He must have been very smart to pull the wool over all their eyes. These were big heavyweight boxers who would snap his spine like a twig. I'm going to read you out now 10 boxers who should have been all-time greats. Ricky Womack. He took his own life 2 months after his last fight. He was 14-0. He had 6 great fights in the amateurs with Evander Holyfield. He beat Holyfield twice. In the box off for the Olympics, Holyfield says that in the last 15 seconds of the fight, Womack took a big deep breath and Holyfield attacked him and caught him 4 or 5 times, and that's what won him the fight. Tony Ayala Jr., he went away to jail for rape. He was a top fighter. They were talking about all-time great. They were talking about matching him with Roberto Duran, and he would have been favoured to beat Duran. He done a number of years in jail, and he came out, made a bit of a comeback. Yuri Boy Campus beat him, and then he went back into jail again for rape. And then he came out again, and he took his own life. Well, I think he took his own life. There was a lot of heroin around the area where he died. Barry McGuigan, incredible fighter. Bad fallout with his manager, Barney Eastwood, and then his heart wasn't in it no more. I thought he could have been an all-time great. Donald Curry, he killed himself to make welterweight, and he was hammered by Lloyd Honeyghan, and he was never really the same again. Iggy Abeabusi, he went away for rape. Incredible heavyweight. The president, Dmitry Pirog, I watched him beat Daniel Jacobs, and he was sensational. He was incredible, and I wondered how anybody could ever beat him. But he had a terrible back injury and had to retire. He's a Russian politician now. Harry Simon, unbeaten in 31 bouts. He beat Winky Wright, and he went to jail for culpable homicide, murder. Prince Nassim Hamed, his head got too big. He stopped listening, Brendan Ingle said. He thought he was God. In actual fact, my grandfather, Harry McAuley, beat Brendan Ingle's brother, John, knocked him out. And John was a big prospect. Number 10, in no particular order, but Tyrone Everett. He was shot dead by his girlfriend after she came home to find him with a transvestite drug dealer. I think he was 37-1. His only defeat was to Alfredo Escalera, and it was one of the worst decisions of the 70s. I reckon it was a fixed fight. He was incredible. Tyrone Everett would have been an all-time great. Thanks for listening to me again today, folks. God bless. Take care.